Mayor Live. I'm, of course, not America's mayor. I'm Ted Goodman, filling in for America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who has another commitment at this time. So you're stuck with me for today. Of course, a very busy news day, a very busy news week, a lot happening here in America and around the world. So we're going to start off with, of course, some election coverage. Of course, it's never too early for those of us who follow the uh, American elections and Congress, whether it's the White House, the executive branch, of course, the legislative branch, and even Supreme Court nominations these days have turned into a something to watch. We're watching ahead of 2024. Of course, former President Trump has announced and is kind of appears to be in full swing with a recent speech at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington. We all know Nikki Haley, who served as UN ambassador to the United Nations for the United States under President Trump, was the former governor of South Carolina. She's, of course, in the race as well. Former CIA director, a congressman from the state of Kansas, Mike Pompeo, is considering a run. So is former Vice President Mike Pence and current Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Others have also floated their names. There's other names actually in the race, including businessman Vivek Ramaswamy and businessman Perry Johnson. The self-proclaimed quality guru, is currently running as well and came in what you could call a surprise third place at the CPAC straw poll. I know a little bit about Perry Johnson. He had also run for governor in the state of Michigan ahead of the 2022 cycle. Ran into some issues with his ballots, as did a number of candidates, including somebody I was working with, and didn't make the ballot. But it appears he is currently running for president and placed in third place at the CPAC straw poll. But as we sit here today, you have President Trump in the race, of course. Former governor and ambassador Nikki Haley, she's in the race. Mike Pompeo's considering it. Mike Pence is considering it. Governor Ron DeSantis is considering it, and others are considering it. But there's a lot to be said when it comes to polling. Of course, polling shows President Trump with a big lead, and historically, of course, you look at a poll including President Trump, you usually add 10 points for him, right? These polls are all built in with biases against the 45th president. But you look at these polls, and he's up big. He's up big in the Republican primary. So we'll see how things shake out. But President Trump appears to kind of be in the full swing of things with a strong speech at CPAC. Now, on the Democrat side, of course, Joe Biden would be your answer when you ask, who the Democrats going to put up. But of course, we all know Joe Biden has some weaknesses, some very strong weaknesses. I'm probably putting it a lot lighter than the mayor would put it. But Joe Biden does appear to have some vulnerabilities when it comes to re-election, and those seem to be mounting. I do think some Democrats, after a surprisingly good midterm, at least a lot of Democrats would tell you they had a good midterm. Some of that talk of getting Joe Biden off the ticket seemed to go away, right? Look, Joe did okay and better than expected. Of course, the Democrats have the Senate and a less of a red wave in the House than expected. So is this chatter on the left about taking Joe Biden off the ticket? How real is that? And time will tell. Of course, we're here in Florida where it is hot. Coming from Michigan myself, right? We're not used to this kind of heat and weather here in March. We're now in March, of course. Wow, time is flying. It is March 2023. So comment below. Let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from, and so you can be a part of the discussion this evening. The mayor loves to be interactive, of course, with all of you, keeping you in the loop of kind of what he's up to, what he's doing. And of course, we all want to hear from you the mayor's loyal audience. So those of us that have been following this, so let's go. Comment below. Here we go. Molly Jean saying hello from Ohio. Hello, Molly. Laura tuning in from California, as she likes to put it. West Virginia, Daryl, thanks for joining us and thanks for helping out. Watching from Connecticut. Annie is in Connecticut. Salvatore La Scala tuning in from New York. I believe it's Staten Island. Is that correct? Salvatore, let us know. Sal in New York. Okay, that's Sal in New York. Kim tuning in from Texas. Daryl says it was hot in the mountains as well today. Molly Dawn tuning in from Minnesota. Tyus is telling me to take the jacket off. We'll see how long I can make it with the jacket. Shining Sky just gives us a Canadian flag tuning in from Canada. Long Island. Salvatore's on Long Island. Bernadette in New Mexico. Thanks for joining us, Bernadette. And, those of us, if you're on Facebook, Twitter, feel free to comment there as well. I'll make sure to get to you. Another Ted in Tampa. That's a good name. Strong name, Ted. And he's tuning in from Tampa. Molly's telling me to lose the tie, too. Come on, guys. Get rid of the jacket, the tie. What's next? The shirt. You really want to see ratings tank. Beauregard tuning in from the Philippines. The Philippines is in the house. Jefferson County, New York. Road rage. Beatrix, hi from Illinois. I had the tie will help cool off. Oh, taking it off, he says. Yeah. We'll see how long we can make it here. The mayor always wore a tie, so let's see how long I can make it here in the Florida heat. You Scotty tells us it's not too hot in Puerto Rico right now. Well, I don't want to say it's too hot, right? It's not that it's too hot, just that it's a little bit more humid and hot than it is in Michigan this time of year. But we're coming to you live, of course, from Florida, a state that really seemed to handle COVID a lot better than many. Businesses still suffered here, but maybe not as bad as elsewhere, where complete shutdowns, lockdowns just totally decimated small businesses in small towns across many of our great states. Laura Levinson, here's a nice glass of Ohio tap water for you. All right. I don't know if we want to go there right now. Being from Michigan, by the way, we have a strong rivalry with Ohio. But of course, we're all on the same page when it comes to clean drinking water and safe rail lines. And of course, the mayor was recently in East Palestine. That's a situation we've been closely following, and many of you have as well. Of course, a train derailing now a month ago, and multiple visits, including one from former President Trump and our very own Mayor Rudy Giuliani made a visit. On Saturday, another train derailed. Another Norfolk Southern train derailed in Ohio, this time in Clark County. And it really felt like deja vu for a lot of people in the Ohio region. Of course, if this keeps happening, it's only going to highlight our infrastructure woes. And, this is potentially happening in a lot of small towns, small communities, rural places across America, and places that, frankly, came out heavy for President Trump. And so when we see these derailments and the situations we're seeing here in East Palestine and elsewhere, it brings a renewed focus and renewed attention on these great Americans. But it's nothing new, right? And the federal government's slow response, inadequate response to East Palestine, it wasn't necessarily a reaction to the fact that these people voted for President Trump. No, this is the way these people have been treated by the permanent Washington political class for over half a century. Many in Washington have sold these people out decades ago, whether it was through poor trade deals, open borders, a big centralized bloated government in Washington. The politicians in Washington forgot about the people of East Palestine a long time ago. That's why when President Trump came along in 2015 and 2016 and spoke about bad trade deals. He spoke about the problem with having open borders, and he wanted us to build in America again, and he wanted to create good paying jobs in America for Americans again. That's why he won. He didn't win necessarily because he was Republican. He didn't even necessarily win because he was conservative. He won because he was willing to take on the permanent Washington political class, and he was willing to tell them, no, we're putting the American people first. We're not putting your profits first, or your interests, or your globalist agenda ahead of the American people. President Trump knew, I'm running for president of the United States of America. I'm going to put the American people first. That doesn't make you racist. It doesn't make you somehow xenophobic. It makes you a strong leader, right? And many of you know this, right? Many of you here didn't vote for President Trump because he was Republican. No. You supported him because he spoke to you. He spoke to us. He spoke to our friends and family in places like East Palestine. And it appears he's going to do it again. And so as these situations continue to come up, it's really going to expose a lot of the people that President Biden has put into positions of power in Washington, right? I mean, Pete Buttigieg, for example, he kind of came out of nowhere. Mayor of a mid-sized community in Indiana, which again, great, right? That's good. These are great communities, but these are also communities that were hollowed out and destroyed by the permanent Washington political class. The same people that Pete Buttigieg spent his life trying to kiss up to and become a part of. And he finally made it. Now, he didn't make it by winning an election. He actually made it by selling out his supporters, cutting a deal with Joe Biden, dropping out of the presidential race in exchange for a cabinet position. And what kind of what did he sell out for? The Department of Transportation leadership position. That's what he did, right? Became Secretary of the Department of Transportation. And he got that position because he dropped out of the presidential race when it became clear Joe Biden was in danger of losing that nomination to one Bernie Sanders. So let's think about this, right? Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders are in a heated Democrat primary, kind of similar to 2016 with Hillary Clinton, right? The Democrat Party did to Bernie Sanders in 2016 what many of the Republican establishment wish they did to President Trump in 2016. The Democrat Party, the leadership, saw how Bernie Sanders was rocking the boat, making waves, and doing well in a lot of primaries and caucus states. And they all the leadership lined up and blocked Bernie from winning that process through the superdelegates and other means, ensuring that Hillary Clinton, was coronated in the 2016 primary cycle. Now, of course, on the Republican side, you had 17, what many say is the greatest field in presidential history, right? You had a lot of strong senators, people with loyal support bases running for president, and many, they would have taken anybody, but who they didn't want was Donald Trump. And so President Trump overcame a lot of internal roadblocks along the way to lock up that nomination. And 2020, the same thing on the Democrat side, right? You had a primary process with Bernie Sanders once again doing very well in these early Democrat places, and his opposition was kind of split up, right? You had the hardcore Bernie Sanders supporters, and then of course you had let's go through it here. This is 2020. You had Joe Biden, of course, Kamala Harris. At this point, Pete Buttigieg was kind of emerging as a strong potential. And what seemed to be happening was these others were splitting up the vote, giving Bernie Sanders a plurality, not a majority, but a plurality in a lot of these contests. And so, time came where the anti-Bernie Sanders leadership of the Democrat Party had to come in and say, hey, look, Joe Biden's the most palatable to the electorate. Mayor Pete, Kamala Harris, some of these others, we need you out. We need you out of the race. And so discussions, and I don't know the specifics of these discussions and how they went down, but we all know the discussions were made, deals were cut, which led Pete Buttigieg and others to leave the race. And what was Pete Buttigieg given in exchange? The role of Secretary of the Department of Transportation, which he is learning is not an easy gig, especially considering the state of our infrastructure in America. Look, you look at our rail lines and how, unfortunately, a lot of our freight and how it travels, and some of these railroads are very old. The infrastructure is, I want to say decades, in some cases centuries, right? Over 100 years ago. And so what we're dealing with is decades and decades of neglect by politicians, likely of both political parties. And we're seeing the results of that with situations like East Palestine. Now, as we see more of these incidences, what we also can't do is rule out foul play. Right? I have no reason. We have no evidence, nothing we saw on the ground while in East Palestine points to foul play. But it's something to keep in mind if we continue to see issues with our infrastructure and problems continuing to arise. It's something to keep in mind. So thanks for joining us. A very busy news night. We've all been following a number of big stories. Of course, the war in Ukraine, the conflict, over a year in now at this point. Both sides kind of marking the anniversary last week, with their own spin on what's happening. And of course, our administration, the Biden administration, announced some strong actions in support of Ukraine. So comment below on your thoughts and feelings on the situation. Of course, it was over a year ago that Russia did launch an incursion and invasion into territory recognized as Ukrainian. The United States, along with many in the world, rallied behind Ukraine and its leader, Volodymyr Zelensky. And it really did appear that the free world was very much behind Zelensky at the beginning of this. Now, over time, of course, what we've learned of some significant, those of us that know understand that's nothing new, the corruption in Ukraine, but it's come to light that some in the current leadership were involved. Zelensky had them removed from office. And so we, at this point, have no reason not to take him at his word that the people responsible for that corruption have been removed. So he continues to garner support worldwide, and a lot of it. Questions remain, how does this thing come to an end? And the question I have for our viewers tonight here in America and around the world, but of course, we're talking here about American tax dollars. What are your thoughts, and how much do you want to support Ukraine, and what does that support look like to you? Now, are we to continue to fund weapons and artillery and that sort of materials to help keep the Ukrainian people safe? How much do we continue to give, and to what cost? I'd be curious too, how many of you tuned into CPAC this past weekend, of course, headlined by a great, what's getting a lot of positive reviews, speech by the former President Trump, which he gave on Saturday evening. Would be curious to hear your thoughts and your reaction to CPAC 2023, especially those of you that attended. So comment below. Let us know, CPAC 2023, did you attend? And do you follow it? Are you even familiar with what it is? I've always kind of been curious how big of a reach does this conference have? It's very much turned into a very pro-Trump event, a lot of support for the president, but it wasn't always that way. And those of us that remember it, even almost 10 years ago now, but I'd say 2015, right? 2016. It was interesting how he wasn't necessarily thought of as a conservative guy, but times have changed. Now, let's go through some recent news, give you a quick news update. The death toll rose to 2 on Monday following a stampede at a rap concert in Rochester, New York, that authorities say may have been triggered by unfounded fears of gunfire. The Memphis rap stars Glorilla and Finesse 2 Times. Wow, I am getting old, right? Those are names I'm not familiar with, but these are Memphis rap stars Glorilla and Finesse 2 Times had finished performing Sunday night at Rochester's Main Street Armory when people exiting just after 11 p.m. began to surge dangerously. Police Chief David Smith said at a news conference Monday, "We do not have any evidence of gunshots being fired or of anyone being shot or stabbed at the scene," Smith added. Concertgoer Ikea Hayes returned to the venue Monday to retrieve belongings she had left behind and gave this report. "I was watching my life flash before my eyes, and I still didn't even know what was going on," she told local Rochester television station WHEC. She just described being on the ground, scared, and praying. Police found 3 badly injured women in the auditorium. One of those injured at the scene, Rondija Belton, 33 of Buffalo, unfortunately died at the hospital. Police later announced the death of a 35-year-old woman, and that was tonight. Her name has not yet been released. Another woman remains in critical condition, and several other people were treated at the scene for non-life-threatening injuries. So this is news that comes from New York following a stampede. Now we're talking about another story here. A business jet may have experienced problems with its stability before encountering turbulence or some other roughness that caused the death of a passenger who served in prominent posts under 2 presidents. The NTSB said it's looking at reported trim issue, which is kind of a reference to adjustments that are made to an airplane's control surfaces to ensure that it stays stable during flight. The NTSB initially reported that the plane experienced severe turbulence late Friday. Now, this is a Bombardier aircraft, and there are previous incidences of trim issues with this flight. Of course, what we're talking about involves a Bombardier executive jet traveling from Keene, New Hampshire to Leesburg, Virginia. It had diverted with 3 passengers and 2 crew members aboard. The person who died was identified as 55-year-old Dana Hyde. She was later pronounced dead from blunt force injuries. Hyde served as counsel for the 9/11 Commission, formerly known as the National Commission on Terrorist Attacks upon the United States, and other posts during a career in Washington. She also served as a special assistant to the president for cabinet affairs and special assistant to the deputy U.S. Attorney General under President Bill Clinton's administration. So again, the interesting part about this story, of course, is that the NTSB had initially pointed to turbulence for the reason of the death, and now they are changing it to a potential trim issue. And again, the trim, when you're talking about a trim issue, they're referring to a potential issue with instruments that are used to ensure the plane stays stable and level during flight. So we'll follow that story and be sure to give you more on that as we hear. More breaking news. Lynyrd Skynyrd founding member Gary Rossington is dead at 71. He's a co-founder and the last surviving original member of Lynyrd Skynyrd. Of course, we all know them from the classic Sweet Home Alabama and, of course, the rock anthem Freebird. So he died Sunday at 71, and no cause of death was given. As we kind of continue to follow some of the breaking news, if you're into sports, this is a big one, but those of you who are not, please bear with me. But Derek Carr, the longtime starting quarterback of the Las Vegas Raiders, and by the way, also a very devout Christian, someone who's unafraid to talk about his faith publicly, he has now signed a 4-year contract with the New Orleans Saints. So not a bad place for a quarterback who is not afraid to pray to God very publicly. Not a bad team, right, for him to go to, the New Orleans Saints, with that name, right? The Saints. 4 kidnapped Americans crossed into Mexico for healthcare, is what we're now learning. We're being told now, this is the news report, that they got caught into a deadly drug-related shootout, were kidnapped by heavily armed men who threw them into the back of a pickup truck and kidnapped. The 4 were apparently traveling Friday in a white minivan with North Carolina license. They came under fire shortly after entering the city of Matamoros, which is just across the border in Brownsville, at the southernmost tip of Texas near the Gulf Coast. This is what the FBI told us on Sunday. All 4 Americans were placed in a vehicle and taken from the scene by armed men, the FBI said. A $50,000 reward is being offered for the victim's return and the arrest of the kidnappers. One person, one Zalandria Brown of Florence, South Carolina, said that she's been in contact with the FBI and local officials after learning that her younger brother is among those who are currently being held. So we'll follow that story as well. Very fascinating story. Unfortunately, we've seen that far too many times. So here's one. Here's a story today that deserves our attention. 23 individuals have been charged with terrorism in, of course, the Atlanta Cop City protests. And what's interesting is how many of these people were not from Atlanta. A lot of these individuals seem to be traveling there from other parts of the country, and it actually backs up what many of us have said over the years and have witnessed firsthand at events across America. Oftentimes, these protests are infiltrated by other groups, by outside agitators. And I can tell you this as someone with a former reporter with experience, right? I worked for the Daily Caller under Tucker Carlson, and I know firsthand that at these protests, among these groups are agitators. A lot of these people are paid, hired by others to get in there and cause trouble. And so people laugh, but it's not just partisan political groups in the United States, right? Foreign actors, foreign countries, they benefit from turmoil and distress in the United States. Don't fool yourselves, right? A big talking point in countries that love to demonize the United States, right? A big talking point is to talk about all these social, the race-related unrest in America, right? They love to talk about that. That's how they try and take America off of that pedestal that we are rightfully on, right? As being as exceptional as we are. American exceptionalism is very real. It's a very real thing. So how do foreign countries, our adversaries, how do they paint us to their own people? Well, they love to bring up social unrest, specifically race-related unrest. So let's not fool ourselves. I can't prove it and make any I can't point to exactly who was in some of these protests, but as someone who covered them in Washington, D.C., in Charlottesville, in places in Michigan, I can tell you that not everyone at these protests are there with where their only intention is to highlight racial injustices in this country. Foreign countries, our adversaries, they benefit when race baiters in America and people like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson promote hate and division among us as Americans. Our foreign adversaries benefit from that, and they use that. So anytime they can rile up a crowd or cause these protests to go a step further, right? They look at that as very beneficial to their motivations and what they're looking to do on behalf of their own countries. And of course, a lot of us, we know this, and we're not allowed to talk about it, and it's too bad, right? We're looked at as conspiracy theorists and all that, but they know it too. But it serves a small few, right, to keep us divided on such silly things like race. So I don't expect it to this sort of thing to end anytime soon. There's too much money to be made by these race baiters, and it's really sad. So again, those of us tuning in, thanks for joining us. Of course, look, it's not the same, right? We don't have America's mayor. You're stuck with me tonight, but he'll be back with us very soon, very, very soon. Rest in that voice and taking it easy tonight on what is a very busy Monday. And we're coming to you live from Palm Beach, Florida. So can't complain too much there. But as a lifelong Michigander, getting used to the humidity down here, it's still a work in progress. And I'll tell you, even many of you are from Florida. You know Florida much better than me. It gets hotter, right? It's even now. It's a lot different now than it was 2 months ago in January. And I can only imagine May, what it's going to be like here in May. But of course, many of us love Florida. Such good people here. And it's just it's very refreshing, right? It's refreshing to be in a state like this. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm reading your comments. You're multitasking. So if I'm looking down a lot, I'm reading comments. I want to keep this as interactive as possible. The mayor is doing well. Those are not chia pets on the deck. My understanding is that those are, in fact, little stuffed, not stuffed, but kind of like plants, right? These are plants that are meant to, let me see here, kind of shaped like dogs. As we continue here, I'm sending out a message to our viewers on YouTube. Just thanking everyone for joining us this evening. We're already over a half hour in. And what is usually the fastest hour on the internet, of course, being stuck with me tonight, we'll call it an extremely fast hour. It goes by fast, but we can't call it the fastest hour if we don't have America's mayor with us. But of course, he's always with us in spirit, and having all of you here is just such a incredible blessing for me, for the mayor as well. You're doing a great job. Well, I appreciate that, Molly. Very nice of you to say. Daryl Smith. Thank you, Daryl. Also giving me a thumbs up. So the mayor will be back, recovering and taking it easy tonight, keeping that voice rested for what we know will be a very busy news week. Things are only going to heat up with election 2024. Of course, as we know, as things stand today, former President Trump in strong position, a strong lead, and the other declared candidates being Nikki Haley, Perry Johnson, a businessman from Michigan, Vivek Ramaswamy, another businessman as well, and a number of people who are rumored to be considering it, but to be determined. Comment below. Are you with President Trump, or are you looking for somebody else in 2024? Let us know. Comment whether you're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, Getter, Twitch. We're on Twitch. Comment and let us know, who are you with in 2024? Are you with Trump, or are you looking for somebody different? Comment below and maybe we'll count them up and give a report. A very busy night. A lot happening both here in the United States and around the world. We saw over 20 arrests in Atlanta on terrorism charges. A lot of these people not from Atlanta. And it just kind of backs up what a lot of us have been saying for a number of years now. These protests going back to 2020, George Floyd, these weren't just local protests where people were just fed up. There was that element, yes. Others came there and took advantage of that. Very sincere, right? And look, there are very sincere frustrations in this country for very legitimate reasons. And then there's others who take advantage of those situations to instigate the crowd, make things violent, get something to happen, just to kind of ratchet up the heat, right? And to create additional unrest for multiple reasons. One of them being so our foreign adversaries can point to their own people and say, look, in the United States, oh, they have race riots, racial tensions all day. You don't want to be like them. These people are, they can't get their own house in order, yet they're trying to spread democracy and freedom to us. Maybe they should handle their own issues. So again, it's all, of course, the United States is probably maybe the least racist country in the world. And, we love it when Trump says it. And he's right about this too. He's the least racist person that, you'll ever meet. Well, the United States of America is probably the least racist country you'll ever go to. And by the way, that's no offense to our friends that are tuning in from great places around this planet, but it's just the truth. I mean, and I say, look, I haven't been everywhere, but I've been to some places, and I read, and I know, and I've been all over this country, the United States, and it's just silly. It's crazy, right? The division, the fake division, and the outrage, and the race baiting by the left, and really by the permanent Washington political class. But the way they just try and tear us down and apologize for America, it is insane. But they do it for a reason. They do it because they want to paint the United States as somehow a bad place, and they want to keep the American people in line, and they want to tell you that you don't know what's best for yourself, so let us handle these things. And of course, they want to continue to divide us on silly concepts such as race. Great question from Rob, our friend Rob in Secaucus. Thank you, Rob. Great question. Senator John Fetterman of the great state of Pennsylvania. Is Pennsylvania a Commonwealth? Let me know. Is it the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, or is that only Virginia and Massachusetts? Let me know. Is Pennsylvania a state or a Commonwealth? But when it comes to John Fetterman, look, we all want him to recover. We have no, he's not an enemy. He's not, we want him to recover and be okay. His health should be his and his family's top priority. But when you run for office, your health and well-being becomes a public matter. So you can't hide behind, oh, he's sick, let him recover, yada yada yada. That's not how this works. When you're elected to public office, you forfeit a certain amount of privacy. You represent millions and millions of Americans in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. You have an obligation to these people, and you're one of 100 senators in the most important legislative body in the country. So you have an obligation to the American people as well. You, as a politician, as a public servant, your health is our concern. And so it is unacceptable how his office has handled these things in the Democrat Party. And it's unacceptable how he's gotten away with it. And frankly, many in the media have done a great disservice to the American people by refusing to cover the situation how it should be covered. It's an unfortunate situation. It's all around unfortunate. The Democrat Party, and somebody put him in this position. Wow, right? Wow, it's tough to it's because look, he was voted in by the people of Pennsylvania and he was put up to it. He's not well. He's in the hospital. We wish him well. We want him to be okay. And the people of Pennsylvania deserve a competent senator who can devote all of his or her time to serving the people at a time in our country when we can't afford to just have right people there to check the box, right? He's just being told how to vote. No, we need leaders. We need leaders and people who are prepared to do the right thing and put the work in necessary to save this country. So we'll definitely be keeping up on that situation in Pennsylvania with Senator Fetterman. So thanks for joining us, everybody. A very busy Monday night. The what's usually the fastest hour on the internet. We're gonna say it's still a very fast hour. It's going fast, right? We're already down to 19 minutes. Uh, but we can't say it's the fastest hour on the internet if we don't have the voice of America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani. So comment below. Let us know what else you want to talk about this evening. Rob with a great question about Senator Fetterman. And it's really one where it's, it's tough. It's a tough situation. You want the guy to do well. You don't want to look, he had serious health concerns. He should deal with them. And those around him should encourage him to do the right thing here. I believe his wife is in Canada or was in Canada for a while. Just an interesting situation. But what he can't hide behind is, oh, this is a private matter. I'm in the hospital. I'm not like right. You ran for office. You're a public servant. It's different for you. It's just different. So we'll continue to follow that situation in Pennsylvania. So thanks for joining us. We're moving right along here, aren't we? We've just got a few minutes left, and we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you, and we love for this to be an interactive show. I'm checking my hair here, nice hot and humid down here in Florida, and I'm looking at the screen myself, but it's mirrored, so it's actually backwards. So if I put my hand here, on the screen, it looks right. It's those of you that know how cameras work. It's Sigma says I should just shave my head. I don't know. I like my hair, and it's no gray, right? I'm 31 now. When do you start getting gray hair? I'm 31. I guess it's probably you got to look at your father, right? That tells you when it happens. No, not that there's anything wrong with gray hairs, by the way. I know some very good-looking people with gray hair. Florida girl, mess with your hair all you want. So, of course, it's a very busy night. Thanks for joining us. We're following a number of stories. Be curious to see what comes of some of this murder trial, of course. South Carolina. Alec Murdaugh found guilty of murdering both his wife and son, and now faces a number of other issues relating to financial crimes. So yeah, this gentleman's got his work cut out for him. I believe he got 2 consecutive life sentences. And apparently he will be appealing. Well, going back to kind of our main topic of the evening, election 2024, it's never too early. We're in March of 23, right? So in less than a year, these primaries and caucuses will be underway. And the question now a lot of us have to think about is what is the true motivation of this individual running? Of course, we know President Trump is running to win. But some of these other candidates, I'm not going to name names. What are they running for? What is do they feel they have a strong possibility of winning? Are they running to serve as another person's vice presidential candidate? Are they doing this for the books and the TV hits, right? Because you can run for president to try and raise your name ID to then go sell a book or become some sort of other personality on TV or, through a podcast or something like that. So that's one question that we have to ask. As a former we have somebody as a former hairdresser, I would tell my clients, it is your hair. Do not let others tell you what to do. That's good advice. That's very good advice. Tim tells me my hair is just fine. We're getting too much into the hair, folks. But I appreciate the kind words and the inspiration, right? The encouragement to keep going. Well, we're running out of time here tonight. Again, the time flies when you're having fun and enjoying the conversation. And look, this is supposed to be a conversation. So please let me know below what is that you would like to hear us talk about. A very, very nice comment from Salvatore. Nice hair. So on the Democrat side, if we don't have Joe Biden, for whatever reason, he is not the nominee, who do you think locks that up? Do we see Bernie Sanders run again? California Governor Gavin Newsom, does he throw his hat in the ring? And a whole host of other names and political figures we've heard from who at some point are going to run, right? And it's a question of if they can garner the support. You got to remember, every 4 years, you have a whole new group of Americans, younger generation, coming up of voting age. So the demographics, the electorate changes for every presidential cycle. And these can be very drastic changes. Even if we were to look at the demographics for the 2024 U.S. presidential election and go back to let's go to the year 2000, right? That was the famous Bush versus Gore election that came down to Florida, actually right here where I am now, these counties. If you looked at the electorate then and some of the polling and then fast forward to 2024, you're talking about a quarter century, right? So it's not like it's it's a significant amount of time. You have people voting in this election that weren't alive in 2000. You now have voters who, 9/11 for them is something they read in the classroom. It's now a part of history, recent history, but history. That's very different, right, than those of us who obviously right after 9/11 with the 2004 election, the priorities during that time, national security, and you look at our country in terms of the polling for what we call social issues, right? Even among the Republican electorate, if you were to look at an issue like the LGBTQ issues, and you look at polling even in the Republican Party and how much that's shifted since 2010 in the last dozen years, right? So that's something to keep in mind when it comes to presidential politics. Every 4 years, you are gaining 4 more years of voters, right? And that's college is 4 years, high school is 4 years. So you're talking about a whole new, you could say, generation of high schoolers, right? Graduating and becoming voting age. And when you look back at high school, it seems like a long time at the time, right? Going from think about when you were a freshman in high school to graduating, right? And you think back to those 4 years, that's a significant amount of time. So it's just something to keep in mind. It adds an interesting wrinkle when you're analyzing things at a presidential level. I mean, every 4 years, even coming up here to this next one, the 2020 election was done during the middle of a global pandemic. And by the time we're doing this next one, God willing, that'll be in the rear view mirror. But take 2016, right? And what the issues then, and what you were doing then, and compare that to 2020, a whole different world. And so it's important to remember that. especially with presidential politics. And it's one thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about whether or not someone may run or not. I mean, there's, one way to look at it is, look, I have this window. People are talking about me potentially being the president of the United States. You almost have to run if you see even the slimmest possibility, right? Because that window, what did we just say? We talked about how long 4 years is, right? And 4 years from now, that window could be closed. I mean, you look at some recent names. Chris Christie, leading up to 2012, right? People thought, is he going to run? Is he going to run? Odds on favorite. Doesn't do it. We saw how that window closed. He had that unfortunate situation with the bridge shut down, the George Washington Bridge, right? And no matter how you feel about that, it really hurt his name and his brand. So if you're someone right now, whether it's Governor Ron DeSantis, even former Vice President Mike Pence, from their perspective, look, even if I have a shot, they're giving me a shot. It's going to be a difficult path no matter what, right? It always is. But how do I not take it? How do I not, if this is something that I've wanted to work towards since I was young, or, which isn't always the case, but it's the case for many of these individuals, trust me. How do they not take the leap and do it, right? No matter how hard. So it's something to keep in mind here. As we kind of think about who may run, who may not run. So we're running out of time here. Just a few minutes left. Of course, visit the mayor's website, rudygiulianics.com. That's rudygiulianics.com. And at this time, I always ask the mayor, what does the CS stand for? And he responds with common sense. Of course, that's the name of his podcast. Has been now for 3 years. A great podcast. And so be sure to check those out. Check them out at wabcradio.com. That's wabcradio.com. Weekdays from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern for the Rudy Giuliani Show. Of course, WABC. That's where the great Rush Limbaugh cut his teeth. Sean Hannity spent many years there. And now America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. So that's 3 to 4 p.m. weekdays on wabcradio.com. And you can, of course, listen to him anywhere in the world, right? And then Sunday mornings, Uncovering the Truth. That's another program on WABC Radio. That's with Mayor Giuliani and Dr. Maria, a good friend of our show here, of course, during our nightly live streams from 8 to 9 p.m. And we're across social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, Getter, Twitch, many places you can tune into us. And we want to hear from you. So please continue to comment below. I show these comments to the mayor. All right, Molly's telling us it's 38 degrees in Ohio right now. So I'm sitting here complaining. I better watch it, right? Here I am complaining about a little humidity here. March in Florida. And I'm reminded by our friend Molly, who's in Ohio, that it's 38, which means in Michigan it's 28. And in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, it's probably 18. Tim says, don't shave your head. Common sense, man. I tend to go with him at this point. That doesn't mean I won't change, but for now, I'm gonna keep the hair. So I guess this is turning into a weather channel. Daryl tells us it's 73 in West Virginia. So we've got a lot of this heat, warm weather here in Florida. I guess you'd call West Virginia is that the Mid-Atlantic? Molly's right there on the Ohio-Michigan border, the Toledo War, of course. So 37 in Boston. So comment below your name, where you're tuning in from, and I guess we'll throw in the temperature. But do it in Fahrenheit, please. Please. I don't understand the I think zero Celsius is 32 Fahrenheit. I know that. So thanks for joining us, guys. Just a few more minutes to go. Again, please catch the mayor weekdays, 3 to 4 p.m. on wabcradio.com. Weeknights right here, wherever you're tuning in from. Join us again tomorrow night. Hope to see the mayor. He will be back very soon. But if you leave your comments below, I'll make sure he sees them. That's where you can leave them here. I'll make sure that he sees what you are saying. We've been doing this now. This is our 96th episode. This is our 96, and we haven't missed a day. I've done a couple of them now for him. I believe this is the third time I've filled in. God willing, the last, right? But we're coming up here on 100 episodes, and it has been an honor for us to be with you. And again, we're just getting started, right? We really are. 100 episodes is nothing when you're doing this day in and day out. And look, we've done a lot in these 100 episodes. We've been in New Hampshire. We've been in Ohio. We've been in Tennessee. Of course, the great state of Florida. New York, where we've done a vast majority of these. But tune in for more from more places. And as we put more and more resources behind this, stay tuned for a lot of big announcements. And Rob tells us it's currently snowing in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Well, Rob, we were just in Williamsport a few weeks ago. We stopped by the stadium. What a great facility right there with the hill, and very nice people. They were very accommodating for us, and we really enjoyed our time in Williamsport. And we did that when we drove from New York City all the way across Pennsylvania to right across the Pennsylvania border into Ohio to East Palestine. On the way back, we stopped by Williamsport. The mayor, as you all know, loves baseball, right? And that's the home of the Little League World Series. So it was quite the experience just to kind of see it in its off season. They have all the facilities, everything set up, and it's just, a nice slice of Americana there in the hills of Pennsylvania. So we really enjoyed ourselves there. So thanks for joining us. Just a couple minutes to go. I'm going to come up here with a nice closing message. It won't be as fine-tuned as the mayor. You hear the mayor's final thoughts on the radio or his closing message to you here on the live stream. But we're going to try our best. And what I would say is to all of you, keep the faith, stay encouraged, and find a way to pay it forward, right? All these sound cliche, but maybe tomorrow, think of maybe this is what I try to do, right? Get yourself out of your own self, put yourself in somebody else's shoes, and think of something nice you can do for them. And I'm going to try and do that tomorrow. And what I'm going to do is look at situations where, okay, I'm frustrated, or I'm having an issue, an interpersonal issue with a friend, a family member, and I'm going to think of a way that I can improve a relationship tomorrow by getting out of myself and putting myself in their shoes. So that's what I'm going to do. And so maybe we can all come back tomorrow night. Let's do that. Let's come back tomorrow night, and in the comments, let me know one way you put a smile on somebody else's face. How about that? Nice and easy. I'm going to do the same thing. My goal for the next 23 hours when I come back to you, and hopefully it'll be the mayor, but I'll let you know from behind the mic. What did you do today to put a smile on one person's face? And that's all it has to be. And we'll come back hopefully with some good stories. One way, Mr. Mustard says you can put a smile on all of our face by shaving your head and showing up with a bald head tomorrow. That'd be funny. That would probably get some laughs, but I don't know about smiles. So as we close out again, we hope to see the mayor back tomorrow night. Comment below all your messages. I'll make sure to pass those along. I'm reading these messages. Oh, yeah, people are really getting behind this. That's funny. Pink Martini, snowing in Nova Scotia. Faithful watcher here. I've watched all 96 episodes. Wow. All the way from Nova Scotia. We've done that before, too, right, with the show where we try to keep a list of where people were tuning in from. Maybe we'll do that again tomorrow night as well. So, per usual, thanks for joining us. America's Mayor Live. The mayor is going to love to see the comments from tonight and hear all about what a great show we had. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow night. Same time, same place. Please find a way where you can put a smile on someone's face between now and tomorrow night, and we'll all come back together and share what we did. Thanks again. God bless America. God bless all of you, and we'll see you again tomorrow.